Welcome to the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Kite Man, hell yeah, is a spin-off series to Harley Quinn, the cartoon animation starring
Kaylee Cuoco.
Yeah.
And it was on my best of list back in 2022.
That's how long ago season 3 came out?
Season 3 came out. I didn't even know that season 4 had come out.
Since then, season 4's come out. Also a Valentine's Day special. And now Kite Man finally. We talked about Kite Man at the time of the Harley Quinn podcast.
Do you remember what I said about it?
That he was a kind of dumb character?
No, well, let me actually play the clip.
Did you feel bad for Kite Man? Because a lot of people did.
I felt bad for Kite Man, but I mean, like, he was always a character that I felt hard to take seriously because of how dumb he was.
Well, are you ready for his new show?
That's the spinoff show you were talking
Noonan's.
about?
Noonan's is the new show.
No.
They're gonna be, wait, that's bad?
Yeah, because I mean, like, I don't want a full show centered around Kite Man.
Well, I think Bane's also going to be in it.
Oh, God, they're just taking the wimpiest of characters. Bane is seen as
I thought Bane was like a fan favorite.
Bane is seen as just like, literally when he was in the Injustice League, all of the other villains hated Bane.
Yes.
They just gave him like a tiny little part of Gotham so he wouldn't like annoy them.
And so I was right. You considered him a dumb character. And also it sounded like you were not prepared or you didn't think that this show was going to do that well.
I did not want to see it.
It was called Noonan's or that was one of the floated by names because in the first episode, they buy the Noonan's bar, the villain's pub, whatever you want to call it. And then in the second episode, it's all about doing this grand opening. Golden Glider goes and approaches Lex Luthor to help invite all the Legion of Doom to the party. And then he ends up throwing his own party.
Strangely enough, it's almost similar to season 2 of The Bear, where they're trying to get that restaurant opened up, and that full season is about them not only needing to get critics, but also having to build it back up from where it was.
The bar itself reminds me so much of the bar from Shameless, because you have all these like individuals who are not the most intelligent and also not the most worthy of like scum. They're scumbags, but then they have a little bit of heart to them. It also reminds me a bit of Cheers and Friends because it's so centric to the show.
Yeah,
that is the main setting of most of these episodes.
Well, do you know who played Noonan, the person who owned the bar that ends up giving it to
but now that you say Noonan, it also reminds me of Happy Days and Al's Diner because that's where they would have a lot of their scenes take place.
It's funny that you're picking sitcoms around the time when this person was coming up because it was Jonathan Banks who played Noonan. For the series. Well, it was also interesting hearing Lance Reddick's voice as Lex Luthor, obviously.
Especially since he's really, really similar voice to Keith David, who's also in the show.
Right.
He's been in like every show that
and always plays, I mean, Keith David here is playing Darkseid, but in Hit Monkey, he was playing the devil. Always some really evil character, but it's great to hear his voice.
Has-Been Hotel, yeah.
Lance Reddick, actually, they recast from Harley Quinn because it was Giancarlo Esposito, and then scheduling conflicts made it so he couldn't do it. So they were able to get Lance Reddick, and he completed all of season 1.
That's great. I'm guessing they're going to recast Giancarlo Esposito.
I imagine so, yeah.
I mean, it's really sad, but it's awesome to hear his voice. Is this one of his last projects?
This is his final TV role.
Holy moly, that's pretty cool. That's a good reason to watch. It's also very funny. As a television show, as an animated comedy, as something where, like, I've watched Godcat or whatever that show, Exploding Kittens, pretty recently. A lot of puns in that, a lot of humor that they've tried to, like, throw in there. This is more authentic, I feel like, to the yesteryear shows where it was like an actual superhero show that you wanted to pay attention to. They're not begging for your laughter. They know what they have is funny. The gruesome violence mixed in. I have so many favorite characters or moments, but a lot of them stem from goons doing really dumb things or being particularly like innocent and funny in the way they go about it. Like the goon at the father's place in the first episode. So Kite Man, he needs money to buy Noonan's because Lex Luthor is also trying to buy it for $10 million, right? And so he goes to his dad, who's uber rich, in Gotham, I assume.
Yeah.
Just like Bruce Wayne is rich and also Lex Luthor. So who's the most rich? We don't know. And then he ends up having to steal from his dad's place. And there's all these goons around. And the first way they try to do it is through a distraction, a la like Jumanji style, where the girl goes up and tries to distract the main goon by doing ballet. And Golden Glider is a ballet dancer. And the goon is really into it and actually knows what dance she's doing. Until he realizes that there are people in the bushes and that their point to come out at. His backup dancers are not supposed to come out until the third act or something like that. And so he calls a BS on it. And in the second episode, when the party's going on, the bouncer goon guy, he gets Bane, who was also kind of a stupid goon, to make him a Benjamin Franklin balloon, and that gets Bane in the door. I just love how these guys have their like little innocent quirks to them, and then inevitably they end up dying tragically. but it's not before you feel for them and you like their character.
The humor is straight out of Harley Quinn. Is exactly like it. Golden Glider, I didn't even remember, actually showed up for an episode in season 3, and then they recast.
So who did Kite Man date again in Harley Quinn?
It was Poison Ivy for the first season.
Yes.
And
so was he with Golden Glider by the time that you saw her?
Yeah, well, but in season 3, because he shows up for one episode, I think early on episode 2. Well, him and her.
But he's only in one episode in the third
season.
Yeah,
and only in one episode in the third season. And the Queen of Fables, the strange head in a jar, was actually
my least favorite character.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the penultimate episode of the first season where Harley Quinn decapitated her and then Kite Man ended up saving her. So I assume that's why she's in the show. But yeah, you get the same type of characters. That's one of the things I love most about Harley Quinn and this, characters that you know so well from the movies, TV shows, and yet still they're in here and they're just as funny as I thought Harley Quinn was.
It also doesn't take itself too seriously. You've got, I know in the first season of Harley Quinn, right, you said that there was like the 9th episode where she goes deep into her psyche and starts working with Batman.
I think it was episode 8, yeah.
Episode 8, episode 9, whatever. And then they like give some real background to her character, some finesse, some thought to it. This, I would say, is much less structured. In fact, calling it Kite Man, hell yeah, feels a little disingenuous because you've got the girlfriend. Golden Glider, I feel like, is much more the central character of the show. And so just like in Harley Quinn, where Poison Ivy takes up a lot of it, I feel like Golden Glider could technically be the first name there, and Kite Man.
Well, there's some things that I do agree that title would probably be more truthful to what the series really is. But the thing about Kite Man is he was never really supposed to be taken seriously. That's why the show, I think, has the tone that it does. He first appeared in Batman number 133 back in August of 1960. Then his character didn't show up for another.
1960s Batman was Goofy Batman.
Yeah. And then he didn't show up for another 20 years until September 1979. And then it took another 7 years before he kind of had the goofiness because his name is Charles.
So he was a serious character at first?
Well, you didn't know a lot about him. All you knew was that he was a thief
and a kite.
And that he used kites. And then in 1986, they had him appear in Hawkman number 4. And the person who was creating Hawkman or was drawing for it felt like the series was getting too dark. So they included Kite Man because they always liked him and gave him the name Charles Chuck Brown as an homage to Charlie Brown. And he even says Charlie Brown's tagline, "Rats," as he runs into a tree. But really, Tom King, he's the person that made Kite Man as famous as he was in 2016 with this thing called the DC Dark Era or DC Rebirth. And then Kite Man, the first thing he says in a Batman comic is "Kite Man, hell yeah." And that kind of became his catchphrase and the reason why I think they titled it this.
That makes sense. I also saw him in the Lego Batman movie. He was one of the goofy goons in that.
So you did catch that because I had a 3 truths, 1 lie.
I know that, so Harley Quinn, I remember in that series, they made a point of going after and trying to find the cheesiest, goofiest of types of villains to include there. And so them transferring that over here and maybe even adding a few, like, what is the toy kid?
Toy Man,
who basically is just the Goosebumps evil villain, right? He was blamed for the vault breaking into in the first episode where Lex Luthor really planned it out himself and he just wanted to blame someone, and then he hid that thing that he was doing in Noonan's bar. But like Toy Man is the one who took the heat for it. I also recognized a ton of people from current day superhero movies, like the Gal Gadot villain. Was that played by Kristen Wiig?
Yeah, the Cougar.
Yes, and then the guy from Aquaman, the guy with the giant laser head. I do not know any of these guys' characters.
There was also the Green Lantern's mentor is the villain in the first Green Lantern movie.
I hate to ask, but is the teacher the one that's also like a villain? Is he in the comics or is he just a fun guy who is a first grade teacher who is also going around and killing people with the crew?
I think
one of my favorite characters, but like Is he?
I believe that like Kite Man doesn't really have his own comic to him, so I think that those type of characters are made up for the television show.
Maybe they are, maybe not. We'll figure it out along the way.
I did have a 3 Truths 1 Lie game though about Kite Man. I wanted to see if you could guess the lie if you're ready.
Sure.
So you actually got one of them because I had Kite Man makes a minor appearance in the Lego Batman movie.
It didn't even seem minor because we had started to talk about Kite Man, then we saw the movie, and it was like. He stood out.
Yeah. So the first one I have is James Gunn originally wanted Kite Man to be part of the titular team in Suicide Squad, but eventually decided against it. That's the first one. The second one was in Batman the Brave and the Bold. His backstory is that he is obsessed with Benjamin Franklin, and while recreating his kite experiment, he gets electrically shocked, traumatizing him and forcing him into a life of crime. In Batman the Brave and the Bold, I put that in there for me because that was like a Cartoon Network show that I used to watch, but they kind of switched up his backstory there. And then for the fourth one, it was Kite Man has a non-speaking cameo in the final issue of Marvel vs. DC in May 1996. That's when it came out. So it's the first one is the James Gunn one, second one is the Batman Brave and the Bold one, and the third one is the Marvel vs. DC one.
And one of them's false?
One of them is false, yeah.
Okay. I felt like the first one and the third one were false, so it's probably the second one in the end. But I will wait. The second one is which again?
The second one is the Batman, the Brave, and the Bold one. The one they gave him a backstory.
I'll go ahead and say that because the other two feel more fake to me, but I'm usually wrong.
Well, no, this one was actually true.
Okay.
The last one he shows up in the final issue of Marvel vs. DC.
Yeah, that one seemed like the most boring again.
Yeah, but the first one, James Gunn, thinking that he was going to be in the Suicide Squad, he's leaving the door open for Kite Man to be a character in the sequels, and that prompted Matt Oberg.
How many sequels are there going to be to Suicide Squad? Because Peacemaker is on the lam, I would assume, and
I think James Gunn didn't mention a sequel when he was doing his DC kind of lineup.
Yeah, but would they bring back Idris Elba, or would it be Will Smith? Like, what's the deal?
I don't know, but Matt Oberg said that he'd be open to reprising his role as Kite Man in the live action one.
Yeah, in 2033. Yeah, so let's get to the show. I did have some complaints with the plot, which is kind of funny. In the second episode, they're hiring people for the staff, and Golden Glider wants to hire Bane because Bane is such a goody two-shoes in this show. Mm-hmm. He's literally willing to quit the Justice League and go work full-time for free at the bar. And she's like, absolutely. And Kite Man says no, because Kite Man thinks that image-wise, they need to be Instagram famous. So they hire this hot new girl who was played by the girl from What We Do in the Shadows.
Malice, right?
Yeah. Yes, Malice is her name in the show. And she has a little cat, and she's very big on social media. And Golden Glider immediately gets very, very jealous, and for good reason. Malice isn't doing anything to help the bar, really. In fact, when Lex Luthor decides to throw his own grand opening party or whatever he was doing, that's where she ends up going.
And she has like a strange cat. Yeah.
No, I know. I already introduced the cat. But the cat, if it eats any street meat, she said, it doubles in size. Mm-hmm. And so at one point, Golden Glider tells the two goons, one of which is dead, the guy with the two heads, to go take care of the cat, by which she just means like put it in another room. He takes it to mean go kill the cat, goes in the back alley. The bullets do not work on the cat, and it just runs off and starts eating people. And that's where the villain of the episode becomes clear, because it's like God Cat in that it's super powered and it's just going around and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's basically the Blob.
Yeah, and just eating everything possible, and also acting like a cat because it does follow like red lights and stuff. And then at the very end, they have to beg Malice to retrieve her kitty, and she does, and then she's fired from the bar. But that's when Darkseid shows up. We'd seen him in the first episode. Mm-hmm. He knows that Lex Luthor is carrying this case, but he doesn't know where that case is, but he wants it. But that's not why he's here. He shows up because he's the godfather of Malice, and he's there to like really sound her out, or really like yell at her, get her in trouble, because she has once again shown that she's irresponsible. And that's where we see Golden Glider feel bad for her and say that she actually did a wonderful job and forgive her. But the thing is, I don't feel like Malice learned her lesson. Like Golden Glider was so quick to forgive because she saw Darkseid being mad at her, but at the same time, it's like she didn't did nothing to deserve that.
Well, it's made by the same creators who did the original Justin Halpern and Patrick Schumacher.
But she didn't go away from her selfish ways. She's just kind of given a pass for everything. Bane still kind of is in a terrible state because he's left the Justice League and he's had to beg for his job back. I just feel bad for everything around it, and it sends the wrong message to the kids.
Well, I was gonna say the reason I brought up the creators is because that also felt like it was right out of Harley Quinn. Sometimes it seems like the resolutions are almost too simple, or that the characters are left off in a worse way, or they haven't, as you said, learned their lesson, and the moral gets kind of ambiguous, I guess.
Speaking of another pub that it reminds me of, Patty's Pub from It's Always Sunny, because you have all these scoundrels living there and they're doing these wacky things, and in the end, if you really consolidate the plot to like a sentence, it is as simple as they decide to throw a party, or that's why it's the gang blah 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 blah. You could easily see that type of
right. You're talking about every single episode.
Yes, because it would be the title gets the gang gets the bar.
Well, again, they have that kind of with the hell yeah that's always being the ending.
I'm agreeing with that. So who is your favorite character of this show? Not of Harley Quinn.
I always like Lance Reddick. I mean, it's hard not to pick him. His voice is just such a presence. I do like Keith David being Darkseid. I would probably have to say though Kite Man. Honestly, he seems like he's
not in it though. It doesn't feel like he's in it enough.
No, he's in it. He's just like you said. Golden Glider is kind of the main character, but he's always in. It seems like most of every scene.
I'm having a tough time with this one because I do enjoy a lot of them. Golden Glider, I didn't expect her to be one of my favorites. Girl, she's voiced by
Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once,
and I think she's doing a really good job distancing herself from that role because I would not have ever guessed that was her.
Well, Golden Glider has actually shown up in other DC shows as well. She showed up in the Flash TV series, and like I said, she was in Harley Quinn for one other episode.
Do you happen to know her real power set? Because it seems like it's kind of open for interpretation.
I don't.
She has super phantom ability where she's just casting out energy.
The way she's able to move.
She said herself, well, not the movements, but like when she goes full ultra and she like just disembodies from herself like some sort of ethereal presence and then just explodes everywhere and she can't control it. We saw that in the first episode. It is funny how in the end Kite Man's dad just does give him the money and he's proud of him because he actually did something to get it.
I thought that it was going to be kind of a season arc where he's kind of vying for his dad's approval.
It will be. Like we see him in the second episode also trying to get his dad to go to the bar for the grand opening and his dad goes to Lex's party instead. Lex didn't seem all that like put off by the fact that his party didn't work out, like that his party got destroyed. And in the end, the grand opening went okay for them. It was interesting online. It says that 3 episodes were released, but for anybody listening who's curious, only 2 were.
Only 2 were, sure. Yeah. And it's going to be 10 episodes.
Yeah, but
series.
Between the main character, Golden Glider, the school teacher, who I really like, and then the goons, including Bane, who I don't know your problem with Bane. Bane is hilarious.
Bane I liked in this. Also, the school teacher, did you compare him earlier to Milton from Suicide Squad, kind of the bus driver? That's always the sense I get from him as well.
No, but I did think of him sort of like from Invincible. And by the way, I think I enjoy, on average, this more than Invincible. I think Invincible has higher highs. But this one, on a consistent basis, I'm laughing throughout the episode. Well, with Invincible, it'll take itself way too seriously, get stuck in the drama, and I'll be watching relationships between 2 college kids that I know are destined to fail. And I'm like, that's not funny.
It's also longer and it's more dramatic, has more of a story. This, you can kind of pop in any episode.
Absolutely. And also, there's like weird, when they go attacking the dad's fortress or his house on the island, which is kind of like Bruce Wayne's fortress on his island in the Lego movie. There's the statues, which as soon as blood gets in the water, the statues would pee. They start peeing blood. And then there's also other statues that had like dick bombs that were attached, like rockets that came out when they were... It was just some creative stuff that, is just meant to be like, this would not be okay for children's TV, but we'll show it to you now.
Well, the thing about Kite Man was his character in Harley Quinn was kind of like Andy Dwyer's, where the creators decided that they would have him in it for like one short scene, but he became such a big fan favorite that when in 2020, HBO Max came to them and was like, look, you should come out with another show, they automatically knew, okay, it's going to be Kite Man. That's what we're going to start pitching.
not exactly similar, but HBO and Game of Thrones, when Bella Ramsey was first cast as the little Lady Mormont, or whatever her name was, she was only supposed to be in one scene, but because she knocked that one out of the park and people found her funny and also like really good they kept on bringing her back, and she became what she is today, which is then the star of The Last of Us.
The creators confirmed that if you keep watching, the finale of Kite Man will have a connection with Harley Quinn and like kind of give away something pretty big that's going to happen in season 5.
We already saw Harley, and I do know that this is made by the Kaylee Cuoco company, so I would assume she shows up more than just at the beginning and the end of the season, but I could be wrong. It's like her baby, though, isn't it? Still,
yeah. I mean, obviously, but the creators left, and you said this in the podcast for Harley Quinn. They left season 3 and then gave season 4 to someone else. So yeah, they decided to work on this.
And you can tell, because I feel like maybe season 4 might not have been as good as the previous seasons for Harley Quinn. I don't know. I didn't read too much about it, but that's
I will be watching, sense. So I didn't read anything about it either. But
but then when it comes to, are you going to want to watch season 4 before you watch the rest of Kite Man because you don't want anything ruined for you?
Probably, yeah, because it came out, I think, a couple months ago.
I think I just read that Poison Ivy dies, but that's the only spoiler I'll give you.
What would you give this episode out of 10?
With the 2 episodes, I would say they were both equal in form of entertainment value, and I hadn't even thought about my rating until just now. I will give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. That's 5 is average for me. I think this is very good. It's not to the level of like the best of Invincibles, but as far as cartoons go and the amount of animation that we've been reviewing, like this is very good.
I will just round my rating up to an 8, which is what I gave Harley Quinn for season 3. I think that if you enjoy that, you're going to enjoy this. The series does have a 7.5 on IMDb, so your rating actually matches. Also,
I will say my least favorite character, who I already mentioned, was the girl, the head in the jar,
Queen of Fables. Yeah,
it just reminds me of too much like Futurama jokes, where you see those in every single season of Futurama, and she finally does get a body here. She kills this kid's mom and takes her body. She Butterface Lady, right?
Yep.
And that also is a Shameless connection, because there was the first time I ever heard that term was Frank.
Early season 2 of Shameless. Yeah.
Yeah, with the person who needed a heart, and that was about as dark a episode as this gets. So
yeah. Also has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 100% audience score. Decider said, "Stream it. This is a fun, foul-mouthed send-up of the superhero genre with expressive voice acting and a gleeful, murderous streak that guarantees its NSFW-ness."
Yeah, well, yeah, for a while you can watch it and think this could just be a normal show, and then suddenly the blood and the gore come out. So they're not afraid to hold back and show it to you. You freeze those images, and they're pretty funny themselves. So you can tell the animation team's having a good time as well. So thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.